got the sound system on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All they're trying to do is keep people out there. Really, I haven't seen anybody in the U.S. Attorney's office. Nobody knows how to set it up. By the time they get this thing started, we're going to call it fire like it anyway. Huh? Go ahead.
Good morning. The United States Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia is charged with investigating and prosecuting allegations of violations of federal law within the Northern District of Georgia, including the City of Atlanta. In March of this year, allegations of violations of federal law, including narcotics violations and obstruction of justice, were brought to the attention of federal investigative agencies by local law enforcement officers. The allegations were serious and were properly and appropriately brought to the attention of the FBI. It is well known that these allegations were initially brought to the attention of the local police authorities and the FBI by Alice Bond, wife of former Georgia State Senator Julian Bond. The allegations and subsequent investigation involve a number of prominent persons, including political and public figures in this metropolitan area. In conjunction with federal investigative agencies, this office has conducted a thorough investigation of these allegations. We have concluded there is evidence that federal laws have been violated. With regard to allegations of obstruction of justice or tampering with a witness, however, we do not believe there is evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that such offenses were committed, and therefore there is insufficient evidence to move forward with a prosecution on these charges. With regard to other allegations, including those involving narcotics, the investigation is continuing. We believe it is important for the citizens of this district, and particularly the citizens of Atlanta, to know the United States government, through the Office of the United States Attorney and the FBI, have conducted a thorough review of these allegations. Although, as I have stated, the investigation is continuing with regard to certain allegations, in the interests of the administration of this city and to enable the political process to move forward, we believe it is important to let the citizens know at this point that allegations concerning obstruction of justice and tampering with witnesses do not rise to the level necessary to sustain federal prosecution. Our role, that is, the role of the United States Attorney and the federal investigative agencies in this matter, has been narrowly focused. Violations of federal criminal statutes, and specifically possession and distribution of dangerous drugs and obstruction of justice. This narrow focus has been appropriate and is consistent with the role of the federal government in investigating criminal activity. Other charges and allegations have been made surrounding this matter. many of which concern not federal interests or violations of federal law, but rather local or state political, administrative, and legal matters which are more appropriately addressed in those forums. Be happy to answer questions.
Are there any targets of the
We can't comment on grand jury matters, including targets or subjects of investigations.
Mr. Barr, why was there insufficient evidence? What was it that told you there was insufficient evidence for prosecution?
I can't comment specifically on the evidence, particularly because there are aspects of this investigation that are continuing. Suffice to say that we heard from a number of witnesses, have reviewed voluminous amounts of interview reports, investigative reports from the FBI, and concluded that looking at all of that evidence as a whole and taking it in the context of all the evidence, it just does not sustain prosecution.
Mr. Barr, let's make it clear. Are you saying now that Mayor Andrew Young had no part in trying to curtail an investigation or hindering an investigation by his phone call to Alice Bond?
No, I'm not being that specific. All I'm saying is that the evidence on the tampering or obstruction of witness charges does not rise to the level such as necessary to sustain an indictment and a prosecution.
Is Mr. Young clear now, Mr. Barr? Is he clear?
We believe that as regards those charges, including the mayor and the other persons, that phase of this investigation is concluded. Yes, sir.
Do you believe there was an effort to tamper with the witness and possibly obstruct justice in this investigation?
An investigation was started. It did not move forward. Therefore, something happened to that investigation. I can't get into the specifics of the evidence other than what I've already stated.
What do you believe the mayor told Alice Bond in that phone call?
Well, the mayor did testify before a grand jury, and we'd be getting into what he testified before the grand jury. The only persons that can testify as to that can comment on grand jury proceedings were the mayor and his attorney.
You believe that the mayor has been truthful in the public statements he made about what he told Alice Bond in that phone call?
Factually, you can look at those things and reach one conclusion. You can look at it in terms of inferences and implications, as with any evidence. It's more complex than a simple answer to that question. I wouldn't be able to answer it.
You have some problems with the mayor calling Mr. Bond, even if you can't argue it. Do you have any problems?
We believe that it is a problem. That is why we have tampering and obstruction statutes, to protect the integrity of the rights of citizens to approach federal investigative agencies or federal authorities if they believe there have been violations of federal criminal activity, or federal criminal laws rather. Anything that interferes with that process, yes, is of concern to us. Yes.
Are you concerned that the drug investigation, the allegations of the drug use and abuse was not pursued at the local level?
That is of concern to us, yes.
Will that in fact be a part of your continuing investigation phase 2 into the narcotics trafficking or abuse charges?
All aspects of that investigation and the allegations of drug abuse are of concern to us and will be part of the investigation.
Does that include the allegations of drug abuse by Mr. Bond? Will the grand jury be investigating that also?
I'm afraid I'm not commenting at all on what the grand jury may investigate. I'm talking about our investigation, and our investigation will involve all the allegations of drug abuse that are in the public domain, as well as other information. I can't get into it since it is a continuing investigation. Dale? I'm sorry, what?
You mentioned other matters, not applying to the law, violating federal law, said that it's legal, it's administrative, it's local. Have you seen anything in this investigation that may not be criminal, that does not say, well, the way the city is running our operations?
Mayor Young is a fine mayor. This is a great city, and I don't believe it would be appropriate for the U.S. Attorney to comment on the running of this city.
When did you make your decision, Mr. Barr? When did you finally decide?
Very shortly ago. It has been a very complex matter. There is a great deal of evidence that had to be weighed in addition to the policy and prosecutorial discretion matters. It was very complex and very time-consuming.
Have you told the mayor?
Pardon?
Did you communicate your...
His attorneys have been informed.
Mr. Barr, if the city takes any action against officers Hyde and Alford for contacting the FBI, will you reopen the obstruction of justice phase in this investigation?
We have no plans to reopen that portion of the investigation.
If the city takes any action against them for contacting the FBI, will they be violating federal law? They are punished for contacting the federal agency.
I'd prefer not to get into hypothesizing about future action that may or may not violate federal law.
Mr. Barr, you said there was evidence that federal law had been broken. It's just that there were not
I really couldn't, Ann, other than to say that there was evidence of tampering, obstruction, but we have to view it in the context of whether or not we would be able to win a conviction if we move forward. If we believe that we cannot sustain a conviction prior to indicting, then I believe we have to elect not to indict. Because we are not going to be, in this office, ever in the business of indicting somebody, particularly a public official, just to indict him and then find out 1 or 2 years down the road that we didn't have enough evidence and should not have brought the indictment. We prefer here to make that decision as early as possible, and that is before seeking an indictment.
Is that normally the standard used when you decide whether to indict?
Yes.
Are you saying that you felt there was enough evidence for indictment, but not enough evidence for conviction?
No, I'm saying the first decision we have to reach is whether or not there has been any violation of federal law. Once we move beyond that, we have to make a decision, is it a substantial violation? What are the policy interests involved in moving forward? Then, if we do indict, is there enough evidence, we believe, at that stage to sustain a conviction? If the answer to that last question is no, then we probably would not move forward with seeking an indictment, because there's no purpose in seeking an indictment if we don't think we can win a case.
Is the reason that you possibly don't have that evidence because Alex Bond has stopped cooperating with authorities?
No, we have reviewed all of the evidence, and we have no problem with the evidence we've received. We feel that we have sufficient evidence to have made that decision. We're comfortable with it. I can't comment on subjects or targets. All I'm saying is that at this point, our investigation has led us to the conclusion that with regard to the tampering and obstruction of justice charges, they don't merit further prosecution or action by this office.
Mr. Barr, can you say whether or not that the violation that you found was more than one person, more than one violation, or simply a matter of one person and possibly one violation?
No, I couldn't really. Although the circumstances surrounding the tampering and obstruction charges are fairly narrow in time frame and in number of persons, I really could not get into the specifics of it, but other than to say that with regard to any persons, including the mayor but not limited to the mayor, we believe that there is no prosecution warranted at this time with regard to any of those potential people.
Mr. Barr, you've been in this
Grand jury convened to investigate the drug charges, or will the current one continue this investigation since its term is about to expire?
I can't comment on anything that a grand jury, any particular grand jury, may do other than to say that in general terms, once a grand jury starts a matter, we're obligated to have that grand jury continue with it.
Mr. Barr, does this episode lead you to want to send a message to city officials about how they handle or contact potential federal witnesses in the future?
We investigate and prosecute violations of federal law. We're not in the message-sending business.
Mr. Barr, the drug investigation that I assume has been underway in conjunction with the obstruction investigation, would it be a long time before you reach any conclusions on that in your mind?
I can't comment on that, Neil.
Do you expect the mayor might be recalled for testimony during the part?
I couldn't comment on an ongoing investigation.
Mr. Barr, you said there was some obstruction of justice, you don't see criminal wrongdoing here. Does that include the transfer of criminal officers?
It includes any allegation that there was tampering or obstruction of justice.
Two of the three officers that were involved in that transfer did not testify before the grand jury, and there's wondering why they were not called in to testify.
It's not up to this office to either confirm or deny whether any particular individuals or any persons at all have or have not appeared before a grand jury, so I'm afraid I can't comment on that
Did
deal.
your investigation include the subject of the transfer of the officers?
We looked into all aspects of this, including that, yes, sir.
Were there violations of the state laws involved here, turning over to somebody?
We don't investigate state laws. We're just looking at it from a federal standpoint.
Passing on any information to the local authorities?
In all appropriate cases, we consult regularly with local authorities where there have been violations, as in this case, in answer to your question, I suppose violations of drug laws are violations under Georgia law as well as federal statutes, so obviously there is overlap. In all appropriate cases, we consult with local prosecutors wherever warranted.
Mr. Barr, are you surprised that local authorities, particularly those in Fulton County, have not done more?
Nothing in this business surprises me.
Are you disturbed by what you see? The dogs and drugs and city officials?
Any allegations of drug use, I think particularly those for which there is evidence that public officials and public figures have anything to do with the drug business are, I think, very disturbing. But I'm not commenting on the truthfulness or accuracy of any of those allegations. Thank you all.
Mr. Barr, was this a decision that environment officials in Washington had anything to say about?
No, the investigation of this matter surrounds matters, violations of federal law that have to do entirely and only with the Northern District of Georgia. The decision rests exclusively with the United States Attorney in this district, and that is myself. Washington had nothing to do with this.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.